Hello, everybody in podcasting land. My name is NateFNGreat, and you might have heard my voice on some shows such as the Game Changer podcast, Kings of the Rings podcast, Fretzomania, Apron Bump, etc., etc. And it is one of those things where I definitely do have a huge love for the world of professional wrestling, but I also like to be random at times, in case people haven't noticed. So I thought it would actually be kind of good to make a show where I can just be as random as I want. No real concept behind it. Just picking up random subjects, giving my thoughts and opinions on them, and just having fun with it. So welcome to the first edition of, well, that was random. So, as we go into the week of November, guys, it's almost Thanksgiving time. It's going to be just an absolutely great show where we're going to be talking about and just thinking back of all the things that we can be grateful for. Even though 2020 has been a bit of a slippery slope, there is still positive things that can come out of this. And I'm definitely going to be trying to hit them during this show, but also definitely talking about some of the things that should be addressed during this time. Now, first thing I definitely want to talk about is The Mandolorian. It made its return to Disney Plus last week Friday with its first episode, Chapter 9, after the events that took place on the first season. Kind of interesting to see what was going to happen. So there is going to be a bit of spoilers on this, so I will tell you guys this. If you've not seen The Mandalorian, I would definitely suggest pacing ahead about maybe 5-10 minutes. So, The Mandalorian in this episode is trying to look for his own kind to try and see if they can be able to give him the guidance to return the, as we've called him, Baby Yoda. Some people have called him by different names. I'm still going to be calling him that way because the fact is there's nothing else to it. They actually do encounter somebody who tells them that there was a Mandalorian who landed on Tatooine. So, Mandalorian takes the Baby Yoda to Tatooine, and they basically find out that the Mandalorian that they were talking to was just somebody in a Mandalorian costume. And it kind of has a little bit of a Western feel to it with this town, as they are battling with a bit of a horrible threat, which I'm not going to spoil because I think a lot of people need to kind of watch and see how it turns out. The threat itself is so immense that it's not only affecting them, but it's also affecting some of the other locals, including the Tusken Raiders, which they find out that they have to team up to take on this new threat. All in all, guys, this was a pretty good starting episode. I like the fact that they definitely do give a little bit more in depth of when this time frame is, because throughout the first season I was kind of confused on whether it was towards maybe time after the first original 3 episodes, the prequel episodes, or something like that. But we basically do find out that this is actually taking place after the second Death Star is blown up. And to be honest, it is kind of interesting because it definitely does say to me that they are trying to expand a bit of the new trilogy that they have created. You know, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. A lot of people are not very fond of those movies, but at the same time, it has its ups and downs. Now, as far as The Mandalorian itself, this is a series that is very unique because you don't really get to see too much in the way of lightsaber battles. You get to see maybe the occasional space battle here and there, but this is more along the lines of just focusing on the Mandalorian character, what's his motivation, what he's trying to accomplish, and basically him showing a bit more compassion than what he would. Now, with this episode, it definitely does showcase a little bit more of that compassion, but it also showcases him as just this very intelligent and very just amazing character that we've come to know and love. And I'm honestly looking forward to seeing where it kind of goes for this. I know that WWE wrestler Sasha Banks is going to be a part of this series. So, in all honesty, what are some things that we could see from this new season other than, you know, the inevitable, which will be Sasha Banks, who will probably be the main, antagonist going into this. I'm just thinking to myself, what are some characters I would love to see kind of come out here? What are some creatures? What are some, lore that we could see with the Mandalorian that we probably haven't seen in other, shows and the movies, maybe the holiday specials, such like that. And one thing I would really love to see is if they would bring out one of the Night Sisters in this one. Now, some people might be a little bit more familiar with that as Mirren in the Fallen Order video game. I've been actually having a huge fascination with her, and I really would like to see them possibly maybe building up to a confrontation with the Night Sisters, maybe getting a little more in depth with that, just kind of seeing if maybe they can even have a deal where maybe the Mandalorian gets a partnership with the Night Sisters, or if the Night Sisters are going to just end up being, villains for the entire series. Who knows? It's just one of those things I would really love to see. Another thing I kind of would like to see would be the possibility of introducing some of the Jedi Knights that maybe are still around, that we've not really gotten a chance to see. Now, I know that there's going to be a series going to be focused on Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm looking forward to that. I'm very excited to see that because that's going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, Ewan McGregor can do no wrong, even as Lumiere. Maybe I'm just Ewan McGregor Mark, but who cares? Also, I know that they also have a possible Ahsoka one that could be coming out. So that's another possibility. I just think that there's so much more that they can divulge in when it comes to the Jedi, deal. Because maybe there have been other Jedi that have survived, the Order 66, and maybe they just never encountered Luke Skywalker. Maybe they never encountered Rey. Maybe they got the chance to actually work with, the Mandalorian during this time. And who knows? There's just so much that they could do with that. Introducing some very unique characters, some new Jedi. I would honestly love to see if maybe they try to do a deal where maybe it's maybe one of the Fretz gets involved with this. Now, what I mean by that is, of course, the original trilogy, we had Jango Fett. The original trilogy, we had Boba Fett. Now, with The Mandalorian, maybe we'll get a third generation of Fetts involved with this. Who knows? I think that would be kind of interesting. But what kind of name would you give somebody that? You have Jango, Boba, Lorette. Nope, not even going to divulge into that. There's just so much that works with The Mandalorian, and I really do love the fact that they have good pacing with this series. There's not really a dull moment when it comes to this series. Characters are either likable or they're just absolutely badass. I like it. It's great. It's just one of those things where I never really got too much into certain series. This is one that I always love seeing. So I'm very interested in seeing, these new characters that are going to pop up. I'm very interested in seeing where The Mandalorian is going to go from here. The first episode definitely is worth watching. Definitely check it out on Disney Plus if you haven't already. It's absolutely great. If you've not seen The Mandalorian, then I would definitely suggest going back, watching the first episode of the first season from 1 all the way till 9. Definitely binge watch it. It is something that you will not regret in the long run. Trust me. Now, we get on to the topic of regrets. I think that there have been a lot of regrets that has come out of 2020, and there are quite a few factors as to where these regrets come from, as well as the bad history. Oh, man, this is going to be an interesting topic to talk about. So, I recently watched a movie on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And what this is a movie that basically divulges and goes into some of the negatives and some of the harm that social media has done to certain people, as well as kind of talks about how it's just affected our livelihood. So it kind of has two stories that are going behind it. You have one part of the story where it's basically talking with people who have worked with Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, a lot of these social media platforms, and they gave their opinions on the work that they had, as well as kind of like the structure as their social media platforms have kind of been created, and their original purposes, the purposes they serve now, and how people are kind of out to get everybody because they have created this. And one of the things that they did, which I thought was honestly very eye-opening, was that they kept panning over with like this social media network deal where we had a couple of like guys that are basically trying to get this one kid hooked on social media again, which is the other part of the story, is that they basically talk about how a family's, deal, like a modern day family could be dealing with social media, what they can be doing to, better themselves, but also some of the effects that social media can have on a person. The family this is very interesting because it does involve in one of the most hilarious but also very eye-opening situations where the mom basically takes this item that she saw on Shark Tank. It was like a food lock deal. It's crazy. It's one of those things where it's a container, it has a lock on there where they put like a timer on it, and it's like 60 minutes, days, something like that. It's something that's actually pretty ingenious when I look back at it. But it's one of those things where the mom just takes the phones, puts it in there, and says, we're just going to interact as a family. And it winds up with one of the sisters literally taking like a hammer to that case, smashing it just so she can get her phone and go on Instagram and just do goofy stuff on there. It's one of those things where I look at that and I found it funny, but it's also one of those things I look at it and think, everybody is so wound up in it's just absolutely mind-blowing. You think about it, because, like I said, the devices are turning into these things where we just center our lives around because it connects us to social medias, it connects us to other people. But it's one of those things that can create such absolute harm as well as benefits. Because, like I said, because you got the benefits of, being able to talk to people, whether it's around the world or somebody who, obviously in this case, could have been quarantined. So you're at least, keeping the distance, but you're also staying in contact with them. It's just one of those things where it's a double-edged sword when you look at devices. And when you look at social media, it's just absolutely, especially I believe nowadays, you're seeing a lot of people who are they're cooped up in their houses. They're really not able to do so much. But so it is kind of one of those things where you do see social media really getting to people, as well as, just everybody's minds are just really getting affected by this, because with too many screens can definitely hurt the vision, which can obviously affect the brain. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. This is one of those movies that documentaries, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it a movie, it's a documentary. One of those documentaries that just really opened my eyes to really look at and see and hear all these people who are, talking about how social media definitely was something that was, a positive point, where like with Facebook, it was about getting in contact with friends and organizing events and doing such like that. Now you got that, but you also have, Twitter, where it seems like it's more interactive with people, and you hear from different people's opinions and matters. You got Instagram, where you could spread, show more of, the pictures. You got Snapchat, where you could do, well, God knows what, because of the fact that most of those Snapchat photos don't really last that long. I think that says it all. You got Tinder. You got so many things that are just affecting everyone. And I do mean everyone. And seeing it kind of be a situation where, going back to that example where basically it looks like there's like 3 AIs that are trying to get this kid hooked back onto the phone, hooked back on to social media. And it is kind of one of those things where it's weird, because it always sends like a notification like, oh, this person tagged you in this photo, or this person likes you via this dating site. I would know. This was one of those things where I've fallen into that trap, because obviously for me it is harder to, go out and actually ask somebody on a date, where it seems easier just doing it via social media. But it's also a danger because of the fact that, social media, everybody can lie about who they are. Like, there's so many fan pages nowadays that are either, actually some of these celebrities, or it is somebody that is pretending to be that person. Same thing goes for, social media Twitter, or even just people just acting like different. It's amazing just seeing that, and seeing that there are people out there that want to just take that time to make a fake account just to either troll somebody, harm somebody, just be absolute. It's a destructing deal. It's just absolutely insane seeing that, and you definitely do see how social media has affected the world today. How so many people can take a story, one story. Like I'll use I call it the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. A lot of people know it as COVID-19. There's people that will take that example and they will either just blow it out of proportion and they'll make it worse than what it actually is. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now that I do believe in safety when it comes to this. I'm doing my part of being safe when it comes to this COVID deal. I am doing my part to, wash my hands, keep a mask on, keep my distance, making sure that I am not going to infect somebody if I do in fact have it. I've never had any of the symptoms. I've never had to get tested, and I'm hoping to keep it that way. But I feel like there is probably going to come a point where I will test positive for COVID, and I just need to be careful about that. I would much rather, be safe when it comes to others instead of be a reason why somebody may in fact die. So I am not going to, go out and say that this whole thing is a hoax. I do believe that this is something that is along the lines of some of the things that we've had to deal with in the past, such as, the swine flu, the bird flu, West Nile virus. So many of these things that we've had to deal with in the past, on par with something like pneumonia or shingles. It's just one of those things where this was something that was, people could say that it was created in China. Who knows at this point? This is just one of those situations where it's better to be safe than sorry. And there are a lot of people that are obviously getting mad about that because, they want to go back to living the normal life. And the problem is that sometimes it's not going to happen that easily. And, social media is one of those things where there's going to be a lot of people that are going to agree with, we want to take back, the fact that we want, our lives to be normal again. And looking online and seeing all of these videos of people who have literally been, rioting about this whole deal, have been rioting about the elections. It is one of those things where something like that I could see literally be in a situation where it's hard to even try to exaggerate that. But social media can definitely make it seem like it is something worse than what it is. And you need to have all the facts behind it. You can't just say, this riot happened because of, somebody, pushing another person. There was probably something more to it. Maybe one of the people said some kind of, racial slur, or maybe they did something that just was inappropriate and that person could not take it anymore. Or maybe it's a situation where the other person pushed them first and they only got the part where that, the person who got pushed is pushing back. You have to look at every side to every story. And it really is a tough thing to do sometimes because it is, you're basically guilty until proven innocent. So what it boils down to is that you see how social media has just been really, affecting us. And I've seen friends who have literally gotten rid of their social medias because they could not handle and they could not stand the fact that there was so much negativity on there. There's so much negativity where people cannot just take something and make a positive out of it. With the election right now, there's going to be a lot of negativity that are going into it. For me, I'm trying to stay positive about it. I feel like whoever was the person who won, is going to have a hard time, taking care of anything anyway. Because the fact of the matter is that it's going to be a situation where, for the longest of time, we're still trying to, pick up the pieces that were left behind because of somebody else. It's really tough to do. And when you look back into it, that, social media is, again, going to continue to just exaggerate certain parts of stories. I'm not going to say they're exaggerating the entire story, but they are going to exaggerate certain parts, so that way people are just going to focus on that part instead of looking at the whole picture of it. And that's kind of something that they do hit on this, social dilemma documentary, is that there are so many people that are only going to focus on that one single part instead of looking at the full picture, because they're hearing what they want to hear, and they are doing what they want to do, that they think is going to do right by them. It's just something that is going to be very tough for us to overcome. And I remember some of the comments that they were saying. They're saying, like, it's going to be a long time before we can even get back to being normal. And that's even if, this whole COVID-19 deal is done and over with, because everything that happened during that time just really affects everybody. Because for me, I'm having a hard time feeling safe around here anymore, because you just never know if somebody's going to break out into a riot. You just never know if somebody's going to just try and go crazy. It's really terrifying to see that. And the social dilemma definitely does hit the fact that it does play a factor. It's not the main factor, but it does play a factor in some of these events taking place. And we just need to take the time to take time away from social media. I think that one of the social media deals actually had a really great idea with his family, where he basically says, well, we're going to figure out how much time the kid needs to have on the phone. We're also going to have time where spending time with the family, so that we get the human interaction. It's just one of those things where you're saying we're not going to eliminate social media entirely, but there's got to be a healthy balance to that. And I think that we just need to find that perfect balance of the positives and the negatives of social media, and we need to just really focus on getting that balance to be taken care of. And we do need to find that balance to enjoy social media, but also enjoy being able to spend time with people. Hey, for a lot of people, it's a little bit tougher than I make it out to be. But at the same time, if you're being safe about it, then it's going to make things a lot easier. Obviously, there's a lot of people, they go to restaurants, they go to bars, they do that kind of stuff. And to be honest, you could still do that. Just be safe about it. It's kind of like what you would be doing if you were out in normal life. Obviously, you would wash your hands if you use the bathroom. You would not, intentionally cough on somebody. You just, have that added factor of masks and just keeping yourself clean afterwards. It's not too much to ask. I really don't think it is. So definitely, if you guys get a chance, check out The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It is something that is definitely a great watch, and I think it will open eyes of so many people that are struggling with the whole social media deal, that are going to be struggling with, trying to find that more normality. I think it's going to open the eyes of people to really look back and think, hey, this is what we need to do to make life better and to get things back on track. All right, the final topic I wanted to talk about with this first episode of Well, That Was Random was the whole debate. And I would definitely strongly say the controversy that has been going on in the world of WWE. Now, this has to do with something that they've been kind of I guess you could almost say they're dipping their hands into, because since the whole pandemic took place, obviously WWE superstars are not getting the royalty checks that they would usually get if they have crowds. They're not getting their money for ticket sales, such like that. They are trying to find new ways to bring in that income, and there's been a lot of them that have done Cameo, they've done Twitch, they've done a lot of these different formats to really bring that income in. But WWE has kind of looked at it and thought, well, they're making money out of this, well, maybe we should be making money off of this too. And I can see where they're coming from in that angle, but the problem is that they're basically asking so many of their stars to basically take down their current stuff on Cameo, Twitch, and basically they may in fact rebrand it and bring it back as their own, with the WWE stars literally making not even like as much as they were before, maybe like a quarter of what they were making before, which in all honesty it's horrible. So much so that one of the stars, WWE superstar Paige, I would almost dare say former star, because she's not really doing that much in the company right now, ever since Backstage got canned. So she went out on Twitch, and while she was streaming, she was breaking down. She was crying. She was just absolutely emotional, basically stating how she was just she did not want to do this anymore. That this company, mainly one could assume that she was talking about WWE, and she's talking about all the stuff that she gave for that company. She broke her neck twice, and she's at the point where she's unfortunately not able to wrestle because her neck is messed up. Her neck is, she's used the phrase, effed up. It's one of those things where it is sad to see, because she talks about her, life as a wrestler. She's been wanting to do this since she was in the womb. This was something that she absolutely, grew up with. This was something that she trained at. Her family was literally, and still is, one of the biggest wrestling families in all the world, in all honesty, or at least well known, because they had a presence in the UK, and they definitely were known as a family that has been very much well received. So much so that they've gotten a movie made out of them. They've got a documentary made about them. They are definitely just absolutely well known. It's just one of those things where you just look at this family, but then you also see the struggles that Paige was going through, especially dealing with the fact that she's not able to wrestle anymore. She has wanted to do this. Was her passion, and she wanted to fill, as she quoted, that void that was left behind when she was told that she couldn't wrestle anymore, when she found out she couldn't wrestle anymore. And Twitch was something that definitely gave her that fulfilling. And it seems like WWE is trying to take that away from her. So I'm going to address it like this, because this is something that has been a debate for the longest time, and Paige seemingly is one of those people that wants to help unionize workers in WWE, because, as it's been stated on multiple occasions, WWE superstars are independent contractors, which I've looked at and thought, okay, well, let me look a little more deeper into this. Let me look at what the definition is for independent contractors are. And basically, the independent contractors, they have a harder lifestyle than we could imagine, because you look at this, they're basically, getting paid, but you're not seeing anything in the way of health benefits. You're not seeing anything in the way of Social Security. They do their own taxes. They're literally, basically trying to figure out everything that's going on with this. They're basically on their own when it comes to this. It's just one of those things where you look at this and it's like, okay, you work with us, but you don't have, you don't get the same benefits as you would if you were working at, say, like a Starbucks or a Walmart, such like that. And that's got to be frustrating. And I will say this, that they're, on so many different occasions, their health protocols, their medical team, as great as they could be, I've heard so many stories about them, and I really just shake my head and see, the fact that there's been, stories of them not really doing a good enough job. Like, okay, so going to the CM Punk story, where he had this, he was not feeling well. He had this lump on his back, which they found out was a staph infection. But the doctor who he was working with was saying, "Oh, you're not feeling good? Well, here's a Z-Pack that will help him out." I mean, the fact that they're basically giving this strong medicine out like candy, it's insane. It's absolutely insane to see that. I mean, there's also the whole, steroid scandal that WWE had years ago. This has to be, actually, now this is going to be decades ago. Holy cow. Just everything that is going on with that, just all the behind the scenes, scandals that have been happening with, the medic team just not doing their job, and just basically all the stuff that, writers are being told, well, we're not exactly able to, go over Vince's head. We have to do what he says, or some situation where they're being forced to doing certain deals where they might have a really cool program set up, or they have a persona that they want to do, and they are doing something completely different. I mean, one of the examples of that was Brodus Clay. I know it's a weird example, but at the same time, you look at how they kind of built him. He was a big-time monster when he was working the NXT deal. He was the big heavy for Mr. I'm going to spend my life in jail, Alberto Del Rio. Oh, gosh. Then was basically promoted like he's coming in, he's going to wreck everybody. But then when he finally debuts, he becomes this dancing monster, which made no sense. Just all this stuff where they're absolutely just cut at the knee because they really don't have like that much in the way of creative freedom. It's not like, going to independent show and basically talking to the promoter and them saying, look, well, hey, I have my vision on this, but what would you like to do? And sometimes the promoters will be lenient and they'll say, like, yeah, let's do a little bit of your way here. Or they will say, well, I think that our idea is going to work better. But at least they'll listen. It seems like, if you're working for a big-time company, they don't give you that luxury. They really are kind of like, this is the way we're doing it. This is the way you have to do it. Go out there, make it work. It's like, there's no way of making it work. Make it work. So, to see so many of these stars who have literally been trying to find other ways to, make money. And there's some of these people that they're not living on their own. They have families that they look after. AJ Styles has a family. Zelina Vega, it's her and her husband. And so many people who are literally having this freedom to do some fun things and give back to the fans and just do absolutely just great stuff for the wrestling community, have that opportunity, but WWE seems to think, ooh, they're making more money? Well, okay, let's take some of that money away from them. It's just amazing to see how the great WWE can just turn into one of the darkest places to even work. It's frustrating just to even think about it. So, I'm hoping that this can be all resolved, and in honesty, when it comes to Paige, I hope that she can keep her Twitch channel and that WWE has no influence on that, because if this is something that keeps her mind off of the fact that she's not able to wrestle anymore, I say let her have it. Let her have this deal. At least I have not heard anything about her bashing WWE, her trash-talking WWE, and that's fine. That's one of those things where it's like, it works more when you let them be them instead of basically jamming stuff in their ear and saying, this is what you have to do. So I'm hoping that this is one of those situations where they really do find a way to just let people have more freedoms. I mean, honestly, right now, guys, I don't want to go too deep into wrestling because I think I'm going to save that for this weekend's episode of the Game Changer podcast. Definitely check that out. It's one of those things where I'm hoping that WWE definitely does learn to take a step back, let them do certain things. I mean, if it's one of those things where, they're worried about, them bashing people, then set the protocols for them. Don't let it be a situation where you're just taking money from them. If this is something that they want to do and they make more money, let them do it. It's not one of those situations where it's like a direct competition. I've never known Cameo to be like a main threat against WWE. I've never known Twitch to be something like a main threat against WWE until obviously right now, apparently. So hopefully this all works out in the end, but we'll see. So this has been the first episode of, well, that was random. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame. Be sure to check me out on so many different podcasting formats, including Anchor here, as well as Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, so many creative deals. And if you guys are listening to this on the Anchor show, definitely major shout out goes out to Mr. Fretz for the message. Thank you, my friend. You have been such a major support, and I cannot think of anybody who I'd rather be working with and who I'd rather work with than you, my good sir. So thank you so much for the support. Definitely check out the show on Saturday, you guys, where I talk about wrestling, and there's going to be a lot more crazy stuff to come, so stay tuned. We will return with another edition. Next week, we'll do another edition of, well, that was random, as well as another Game Changer podcast deal, so definitely tune in. And guys, I will talk to you in the next episode. And before I go, I'm going to end it on a random note, which is, be sure to floss your teeth every night. Paid for by the American Dental Association. See ya!